This, of course, came as a huge shock, and William and I have been doing everything we can to process and manage this privately for the sake of our young family.
The royal vault was supposed to settle a question about ownership. Instead, it reopened one of the monarchy's deepest emotional wounds. When a sealed inventory connected to Diana's private collection was examined, the language inside appeared devastatingly clear. A protected group of personal jewels and heirlooms had been reserved for Princess Catherine. Camilla expected another routine archival review. What she heard instead left her motionless, because this was not simply about jewelry, it was about legacy. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. Camilla did not move when Catherine's name was read aloud. She had entered expecting a controlled review, nothing more, but the authenticated inventory changed everything. The royal vault, a secure store for valuable objects under palace protection, held crown-controlled pieces and private possessions, and that difference mattered more than price. Diana's personal collection had not been absorbed into ceremonial holdings. It was preserved separately, under instructions giving the objects a family meaning the palace could not rewrite. The queen consort asked for the passage to be read again, slowly, without interruption. The wording was unmistakable. A private family collection to remain intact was to pass into the custody of Catherine, Princess of Wales. That title, used by the wife of the heir to the throne, carried weight because Diana had once held it herself. Catherine felt that weight immediately. She did not smile. She did not reach for the inventory. Instead, she asked whether the language had been checked twice, because accepting those possessions could look like accepting something far larger than jewelry. Catherine understood the danger. Every future appearance could become a comparison. Every necklace could be treated as a message. William's wife knew Diana's memory still carried enormous force, and she had spent years avoiding the suggestion that she was trying to replace the woman whose absence shaped her husband's life. Camilla saw the same problem from the opposite direction. To her, the transfer threatened to reopen a comparison she had never escaped. Then the vault officer read the final instruction. The collection was eventually to be entrusted to a woman occupying a future role closely connected to Diana's sons. The language did not name Catherine directly, but in the present royal order, the meaning pointed toward her with chilling precision. Charles received the last news in silence. A second sealed notation existed beside the inventory, and it appeared to explain why Diana wanted the collection protected from ordinary palace control. Camilla had heard who would receive it. What she had not heard was why, and that answer would make the inheritance painfully personal. There were 3 women at the heart of this moment, but only 2 could stand inside the room. Diana belonged to history. Catherine represented what came next. And Camilla suddenly found herself facing an inheritance that appeared to connect those 2 women across decades. No accusation needed to be spoken. The collection itself had become the message. For Catherine, that message carried enormous responsibility. For Camilla, it carried a comparison she could never completely escape. Catherine understood that these objects were not simply expensive pieces locked away for decades. They carried Diana's private history, motherhood, independence, painful public scrutiny, and the years in which William and Harry had watched their mother struggle beneath extraordinary pressure. The collection had been catalogued separately from ceremonial crown holdings, meaning jewelry used as part of official royal duty, and that separation suggested intention rather than administrative chance. Someone had wanted these pieces remembered differently. William found Catherine alone after the vault meeting, still trying to understand what had been placed in front of her. She told him quietly that receiving the collection did not feel like an inheritance. It felt like being asked to protect an unfinished story. The prince understood immediately. His mother's possessions were tied to memories he could not separate from childhood, loss, and the private woman behind the public icon. Catherine feared that accepting them might invite the world to call her Diana's replacement, something she had spent years carefully avoiding. Camilla carried a different pain. During a private conversation with Charles, she insisted that she was not attacking Catherine, and did not want the younger woman blamed for instructions written long before she entered royal life. Yet the queen consort admitted what truly unsettled her. Decades after Diana's death, she still felt the late princess could define the emotional order of the family without saying a word. Charles listened carefully. He knew this was not jealousy alone. It was exhaustion from a comparison that had never completely disappeared. Then William received a documented account from the vault officer confirming another crucial detail. Diana's instructions had been amended after a deeply emotional family event. The amendment did not change which pieces belonged to the collection. It changed the conditions under which they could eventually pass forward. Charles froze when he saw the date. The king remembered exactly what had happened shortly before that amendment was written, and his silence told William that this was no ordinary correction. Something had pushed Diana to act, something personal, something she had clearly never forgotten. The mystery was no longer simply who Diana had chosen. It was what happened years earlier that convinced her such protection would ever be necessary. Long before Catherine entered royal life, long before Camilla became queen, a private disagreement had already planted the seed of what was now unfolding inside the vault. It began with something deceptively small, a discussion over whether personal royal jewelry should eventually be absorbed into institutional collections. Diana heard the suggestion differently. To everyone else, it concerned preservation. To her, it threatened the final pieces of a private identity she had fought desperately to protect. One conversation changed everything. Diana had already learned that royal possessions could carry two very different meanings. Some pieces were connected to official duty, while others felt deeply personal, tied to motherhood, memory, and the life she shared with William and Harry. Palace administration, meaning the system used to record and manage royal property, could preserve an object perfectly while slowly stripping away the story attached to it. That was what frightened her. She did not want pieces associated with her sons to become anonymous items inside a wider collection. The turning point came after a formal royal reception. During a private family jewelry review, Diana was told that several personal pieces might eventually be catalogued alongside wider royal holdings for continuity. She went still. Then she reached across the table, removed one ring from the group, and said quietly, "Not everything I wore belonged to the crown." The room changed in that instant. What others considered practical administration, she understood as a warning that private memory could one day be absorbed by the institution. Diana carried that anger into a private conversation later that evening with a trusted legal advisor. According to a documented account prepared from the consultation, she gave a precise instruction. Certain pieces were to remain together, protected as a family collection, and ultimately pass through her family, rather than ordinary palace convention. Her concern was not money. She feared redistribution, renaming, or anything that might detach those possessions from William and Harry. The advisor then suggested language broad enough to survive beyond her son's immediate custody. Succession, the system determining how royal roles pass from one generation to the next, could eventually place a trusted future woman beside the heir. Diana accepted wording that protected the collection for that possibility, without naming anyone she could not possibly have known. Years later, Catherine unknowingly fit that description. She was not chosen by name. She was identified by the role she eventually occupied beside William, and that difference gave the old instruction its chilling force. Camilla learned the full history and immediately challenged the interpretation. She wanted Catherine in the room before a single item moved. For decades, the instruction had survived silently on paper. Now 2 living women were about to confront what that paper meant. There were no advisors between them when the conversation began, no press secretary, no ceremonial language capable of softening what both women understood. Camilla was not asking Catherine whether she wanted the collection. She was asking whether she understood what accepting it would symbolize. Catherine did. That was exactly why she had hesitated. But hesitation was not surrender, and when Camilla pushed the question further, the encounter stopped being about jewels and became a confrontation over memory itself. Catherine had agreed to the private meeting because she feared the dispute could spread through the family if every concern became another formal palace discussion. William remained outside and chose not to intervene. He understood that his presence could turn the exchange into a debate about Diana before either woman had spoken honestly. Camilla began calmly. She argued that private family memory and the Queen's institutional position, meaning the official public role carried by the monarch's wife, could not be allowed to collide every time an inherited object resurfaced. Camilla held Catherine's gaze and finally asked the question she had been carrying since the vault opened. "Do you understand what people will say when you wear one?" Catherine paused. Then she placed both hands flat on the table and answered that the collection was not hers to exploit. It was hers to protect. The princess knew exactly what a necklace, ring, or brooch could become once the public connected it to Diana. One appearance could be treated as a declaration she had never intended to make. The queen consort's restraint began to crack. She admitted that she had spent decades being measured against Diana, judged through a comparison she could neither erase nor answer without appearing defensive. Catherine, receiving an intact private collection, threatened to revive that pressure all over again. Camilla was not accusing her of cruelty. She was admitting fear. Catherine responded with a decision she had already made. She would not publicly display any item until William and Harry had been given the chance to review the inventory themselves. Family stewardship, meaning temporary responsibility for protecting something on behalf of others, mattered more to her than possession. She wanted Diana's sons to understand that nothing would be used as a symbol of victory. Then Camilla heard the detail that changed the confrontation. Catherine could not simply redirect the collection, even if she wanted to. The vault terms named a custodian, but the protective conditions remained attached to the objects. The room fell quiet. If Catherine could not rewrite the arrangement, and Camilla could not stop it through personal objection, then someone else held the real authority. The confrontation had exposed the emotion. The next meeting would expose the power. Royal palaces are filled with titles, but titles do not automatically control private property. That distinction now became crucial. Camilla could object. Catherine could hesitate. William could carry the emotional weight. Charles could seek peace. Yet none of them could simply rewrite an authenticated private arrangement because it had become inconvenient. Somewhere between family loyalty and legal custody stood a small group of trustees whose duty was brutally simple: preserve the intention attached to the collection. Charles understood the danger before anyone entered the family meeting. The trustees, independent custodians appointed to protect specific property and follow the conditions attached to it, had reviewed the inventory alongside royal legal officers. Their conclusion was firm. Diana's private collection had been separated deliberately from ceremonial royal assets, meaning objects controlled through official royal use. That distinction mattered because the king's position could not erase private inheritance terms simply because the consequences had become painful. The monarch read the final page alone. He reached the last paragraph, removed his glasses, and set them beside the file. Then he said nothing. Charles had spent years balancing family wounds against public duty, but this offered no easy compromise. Protecting Diana's instructions risked hurting Camilla. Weakening them risked betraying William and Catherine. For several long seconds, the king understood that authority could not solve an emotional problem created by memory. William entered quietly and immediately sensed what his father had discovered. The prince did not demand enforcement. Instead, he told Charles that this could never become a victory over Camilla. He wanted his mother's wishes protected, but he refused to let Catherine become a weapon in a conflict that began before she joined the family. The future king understood that if the collection became proof that one woman had defeated another, Diana's private intention would be buried beneath another public battle. Then one trustee delivered the decisive revelation during the recorded legal briefing. The private collection had to remain intact under its designated custodian, unless both of Diana's sons agreed to another arrangement. That clause changed everything. Harry now mattered just as much as William. If both brothers consented, another path remained possible. If they did not, Catherine's custody would stand. Charles absorbed the implication immediately. Contacting Harry could reopen old fractures, yet avoiding him was impossible. William knew the same thing. But before any formal approach could begin, Camilla received a documented notice from the trustees. The first inventory transfer had already been authorized. One item was being prepared to leave long-term vault custody. For days, everyone had debated what might happen. Now something was actually moving. The argument changed the moment the first sealed case was lifted from storage. Until then, every disagreement could still feel theoretical. A clause could be questioned. An interpretation could be challenged. A meeting could be delayed. But physical transfer created reality. Catherine watched the case arrive without celebration. Camilla heard that it had left the vault and understood immediately what the movement meant. Diana's wishes were no longer being debated as history. They were being carried into the present. Catherine refused any ceremony around the handover. The trustees moved the collection slowly, checking each piece, recording it in the private inventory, and formally placing it under her custodianship. Custodianship meant responsibility for protecting something without treating it as personal property free of conditions. That distinction mattered, because she did not want anyone to mistake preservation for possession. She asked for the first item to be secured privately, rather than added to her normal jewelry rotation. Camilla received the confirmation while sitting with Charles. She read the short notice once, then again, as though the words might change. They did not. The Queen Consort lowered the paper and said quietly, "Then, it is finished." Charles did not agree. He told her the legal question might be finished, but the family question was not. The king knew paperwork could settle control. It could not settle grief, comparison, or resentment. William saw the same tension in Catherine. He told her she was not responsible for whatever rivalry others might project onto the collection. The prince understood how quickly one appearance could be twisted into a message about his mother. Catherine admitted that was exactly what frightened her. Every future necklace, brooch, or ring could be examined as proof that she was deliberately invoking Diana, even if her intention was nothing more than remembrance. Then the first case produced an unexpected revelation. The item inside was not among the most valuable pieces. In financial terms, it was almost modest. That choice suggested the trustees were emphasizing emotional meaning over spectacle. William read the accompanying record and stopped. A handwritten family notation connected the piece directly to his childhood and to Harry, preserving a memory of Diana as their mother rather than as a global royal figure. Suddenly, the collection felt different. This was not a contest over status. It was a bridge back to a private family life that had vanished too early. The prince made his decision immediately. He would stop arguing through trustees, protocol, and inherited clauses. He would speak to Camilla himself, alone. The lawyers had taken the dispute as far as law could carry it. What remained could only be settled by two people willing to speak without protection. William did not enter the room as heir to the throne, and Camilla did not receive him as queen. For perhaps the first time since the vault discovery, neither title could help them. He was Diana's son. She was the woman who had spent much of her adult life living beneath Diana's shadow. Their conversation had no witnesses and no formal agenda, yet what William said would finally move the crisis away from rivalry and towards something neither side had expected: acceptance. William had asked that no aides attend because he wanted every word to belong to him. Constitutional advisors, the officials who guide the royal family on formal duties and legal boundaries, could explain rules, but they could not explain grief. The prince knew Camilla might dismiss a carefully prepared message as palace strategy, so he gave her none. He began with the truth instead. He understood why the collection hurt, and pretending otherwise would insult both her experience and his mother's memory. Camilla listened without interrupting. Then she asked the question beneath every argument they had avoided. Did he see Catherine receiving the collection as a judgment on her? William answered immediately, "No, it is a decision about my mother's things, not a verdict on your life." The words landed harder than anger would have. The queen consort had prepared herself to defend her place. Instead, Diana's son refused to put her on trial. The silence changed something. Camilla realized that if William would not treat the inheritance as a contest between women, then continuing to resist Catherine could create the very rivalry she feared. The prince made his position even clearer. Neither he nor Catherine would present the collection as proof that one woman had replaced another. Any future use would center on family continuity and on Diana's relationship with her sons, not on reopening old wounds. William did not ask Camilla to celebrate. He asked only that she stop fighting what his mother had chosen to protect. That distinction mattered. Acceptance did not require affection. It required restraint. Camilla finally gave him the answer the family had been waiting for. She would not challenge the transfer again. The queen consort admitted through their private recorded conversation that the emotional consequences would remain difficult, but Diana's private wishes deserved to stand. William accepted that without triumph. For the first time, neither side needed to win. But the peace did not stay behind closed doors. News of the vault decision reached the outside world, and within hours a private inheritance became an international royal story. Inside the palace, the struggle was finally cooling. Outside its gates, it was only beginning to erupt. The palace had tried to keep the transfer quiet, but royal history has a way of escaping private rooms. Within hours of confirmation that Diana's preserved collection had passed into Catherine's custody, broadcasters abandoned ordinary programming segments, newspapers rebuilt their front pages, and crowds began gathering outside royal landmarks. Yet one particular image captured the public mood better than every headline. A woman standing outside Kensington Palace, holding flowers beneath an old photograph of Diana, beside a newer photograph of Catherine. The palace issued only a restrained acknowledgement. It confirmed that certain privately held family objects had entered Catherine's custodianship under long-standing arrangements, with custodianship meaning responsibility for protecting property according to conditions already attached to it. William and his wife refused interviews. The prince believed any public celebration would turn a deeply personal inheritance into spectacle, while Catherine feared triumphal language would disrespect both Diana's memory and Camilla's difficult position. Camilla watched the first wave of coverage with dread. She expected headlines built around defeat, rivalry, and old wounds. Instead, something unexpected happened. The dominant message became simpler. A mother's possessions had remained connected to her family. Charles noticed the change immediately. In a private conversation, the king told her that refusing to challenge the transfer publicly had altered the story. For once, restraint rather than rivalry was shaping how people saw the queen consort. Outside Kensington Palace, the reaction became impossible to ignore. A small crowd gathered near the gates, leaving flowers and handwritten messages. Cameras lingered on one card that read, "A mother's things stayed with her family." The words spread quickly through broadcast coverage because they reduced years of royal tension to something painfully human. This was no longer merely about a famous collection. It was about what children keep when a parent is gone. Catherine heard about the message, but refused to respond publicly. She understood that silence now protected everyone better than explanation. William agreed. The future king knew any attempt to claim moral victory could destroy the fragile peace created inside the family. Then, an evening bulletin gave the story its clearest framing yet. The presenter described it not as a battle between queen and princess, but as a collision between private inheritance, royal succession, the system through which roles pass through the family, and Diana's lasting cultural memory. That changed the final question. The world now understood why the collection mattered. Catherine still had to decide what its future would be. Receiving it had been decided by the past. What she did with it would determine what the inheritance meant in the future. The final decision did not come from a vault officer, a trustee, a king, or a queen. It came from Catherine. She could have treated the collection as jewelry. She could have locked it away indefinitely. She could even have allowed the world to transform it into proof that one royal woman had somehow defeated another. Instead, she chose something quieter. Diana's possessions would remain protected, but their meaning would belong neither to rivalry nor spectacle. They would remain what Diana had intended, family memory carried forward. Catherine formally accepted custodianship and immediately set the boundaries. The collection would remain intact, securely preserved, and separate from ordinary ceremonial jewelry. Custodianship, meaning responsibility for protecting property under conditions already attached to it, gave her a duty rather than unrestricted ownership. That mattered because she wanted the inheritance to survive beyond headlines. William agreed that significant pieces could eventually be shared within the family, but only in ways that respected the protections Diana had placed around them. Catherine then made another decision that revealed where her loyalty truly rested. She invited William and Harry to maintain access to the private family records connected to the collection. The princess understood that no title could change the emotional truth beneath the inheritance. Diana had been their mother first. Whatever responsibility Catherine now carried, her sons remained central to the story those possessions preserved. William recognized the gesture for what it was, not control, but respect. Catherine opened the first transferred case privately with William beside her. She looked at the item for a long moment, but did not put it on. Instead, she closed the lid, rested her hand over the case, and said quietly, "We keep it safe." The prince answered with only 4 words, "That is enough." In that moment, the collection stopped feeling like a prize. It became exactly what both of them had feared losing, a protected piece of family memory. Camilla received confirmation of the decision through a documented palace account and felt the tension finally ease. The queen consort understood that the collection would not be used to diminish her position or revive an endless public contest with Diana. She chose never to challenge its custody again. Charles saw the significance immediately. The king understood that nobody had received everything emotionally, yet that was precisely why the settlement had survived. Diana's wishes remained protected. Catherine inherited responsibility, not victory. Camilla preserved her dignity by stepping away from the struggle. William defended his mother without turning her memory into a weapon. The vault had not proved that one royal woman had defeated another. It proved something far more lasting. Private memory could survive inside an institution built around public inheritance. Diana's collection reached Catherine because its purpose was preservation, not revenge, and the monarchy moved forward by allowing its painful history to have a place without allowing that history to control the future. The vault had opened with a shock, but it closed on something far quieter. Diana's possessions were protected. Catherine understood the burden she had inherited. Camilla accepted what could not be rewritten, and an old royal wound finally stopped demanding another winner. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.